So let's talk about the mentality of the I need to think about it objection to begin with. Then we're going to talk about what you need to specifically say word for word in order to overcome that and dig deeper. So the first thing is, really with any kind of objection that you first hear is always a surface level objection. It doesn't really mean much. It's not specific. That's why the I need to think about it thing doesn't really tell you much. So what you need to remember whenever you do any kind of rebuttal against this particular objection or another is that you really don't care what they just said. You want to say a series of words to take the layer of that onion off so that you really get to the core root of whatever the problem is. Because most people don't want to be transparently, brutally honest with a salesperson, some stranger they just met. So it may take some work to rebuttal it. That's why we're talking about this after all. So what do you say? When somebody says, Dave, I like this, but I need to think about it, here's what I do. I simply say, Mr. Jones, that's totally fine. When you say you need to think about it, how do you mean? So let's talk about what that process does and why I say it and where you go after that. So first of all, I try to lower their defenses whenever I hear this objection. They're thinking I'm going to get mad. I'm going to tell them that they're an idiot and then be aggressive. Even if I've been nice the whole time, they'll think that that's what's going to happen. So by lowering their defenses, they know that I'm not here to tear them apart. But as the rebuttal continues, I say, hey, Mr. Jones, it's totally fine. If that's how you feel, that's great. But to continue here off script, but now back on script, when you say I need to think about it, how do you mean? So I say it in a tone that's not accusatory, it's not aggressive, it's really inquisitive, and it's done in a gentle enough fashion that I give this permission to the person to tell me more about what it is that's causing them to be hung up. So what happens is, when somebody says that rebuttal to a prospect, they come back and say, well, they do one of two things. They either continue with the smoke screens, as we call it, with some kind of, well, I don't know about this, blah, blah, blah. I need to look at this or that. Or they'll go to what really the core issue is, which is, I just can't really afford this, or this isn't right for me, or whatever the objection is, or I don't know about this company. Whatever it is, you start to get more substantive objections that you can isolate and then go to battle with to see if you can overcome those. So that leads us to this next section. So once you've determined whatever it is that their objection is, now you can start to isolate that objection and make sure there's nothing else sticking around. So how do you do that? Very simple. So when somebody says, hey, I don't know if I can afford this, you say, hey, Mr. Jones, totally fine, and I really appreciate you telling me that. If affordability is an issue, I understand that. My question to you is, besides affordability, in fact, let's just say you could afford this, or we find a way you can afford this. Is there any other reason that you would object to buying today a policy from me? So what happens there is they either say, no, that's pretty much it, or yeah, there's this too. So you just continue the process and again, isolate the objections so that you know more specifically about what it is that they're having problems with. Once you've isolated the objections, and then once they say, no, that's pretty much it, you say, well, Mr. Jones, if what I'm hearing is the case, please let me know. If I can find you a plan that is affordable, that does fit your budget, let's say that's the objection, right? Is there any reason that you would not buy from me today? Are you saying you would proceed and we could do business? And so be quiet, and then they'll either say yes or they'll say no. And if they say no, there's something else out there, and you got to keep isolating the objections around. If they say yes, that's a trial close. So that's when you can proceed to go to war with whatever objection that truly, really is. So keep that in mind. That is the process that you use when you hear the I need to think about it, because that's not really an objection. It's just a statement. It's just the cursory objection to a core objection that you need to start to overcome.